Welcome to What If Deku Was a Immortal Villain. Warning: cute gay stuff. Enjoy. Izuku's POV. I finally got over my heartbreak and started filling in my notebook, adding in every little detail of Tomu that I could remember, all the way from his name to his shoes on a detailed sketch of him. The thing that hit home the most though was that I still hadn't seen his face. It had been 2 months since the incident at the use. The other student from Class 1A had started to treat me less like a wild animal and more like a human, and occasionally greeted me. They even started to have small conversations with me, so that was weird. During that time my obsession for Tomu had only grown, and I was desperately waiting for a moment to see him again, but it was killing me. I had no patience or tolerance for waiting. It was so annoying. I often had conversations with the voice about casual topics, normally about Tomu, and we've been getting on pretty well lately. We usually talk in our room, in the classroom, basically just anywhere. It's not like I gave a damn about others' opinions. Our most recent conversation was about whether Tomu's hair color was natural or not, and we came to the conclusion that it was most likely dyed. It was kinda sad that I was talking to myself, but it just kept me sane all this time, so I didn't dismiss it. "What do you think Tomu's doing now?" it asked as I sat in present Mike's English class. "I dunno, I'm sure he's just plotting new ways kill All Might and destroy this world," I muttered to myself as Kachan gave me an aggressive stare and the student next to me rolled his eyes. "I hope we see him soon." "Me too." Sleepy Sensei announced to us that we would be doing hero work studies at hero agencies that said they wanted us after the sports festival. Me, who was a ghost for the first trials and broke my legs for the other, received a total of 0 requests, but I preferred it that way. Sleepy Sensei then told us to fill out the forms and write down the hero agency that we wanted to go to, and that those who didn't receive any requests still had to go somewhere. I then decided that I would ignore this all, go back to my room and watch the new episode of my favorite anime, and so I did. The next day Sleepy Sensei came up to me complaining about how I didn't fill it in the hero work studies form, so I played dumb, but it wasn't working. I say burn the paper and go back to the room. "I really want to, but I know I can't avoid this," I said to myself as Sleepy Sensei looked down at me, confused. "Just choose an agency or I'll choose one for you," he told me as he rubbed his tired eyes. "And stop talking to yourself." He walked away, leaving behind the paper. I then chose to follow the voice's advice, and when I got outside I used my lighter to burn up the paper and went back to my room. On the day that we were all about to head over to separate agencies, Sleepy Sensei gave me a paper with information of where I was headed on it, and he said, "This is the agency you're going to. You're never chose, so don't complain." I tiredly dragged myself over to the location, using Google Maps to guide me, but since I was so great at navigating, I got lost. After 2 hours of searching around the area I found myself at a hospital. It turned out that I was assigned to a healing hero due to the similarity of our quirks. At some point within my time with Injury Tamer, his hero name, I saw both Todoroki and Engine Thighs at the hospital. They had a few stab wounds and scrapes, but other than Nita's arm, he told me his name when I straight up called him Engine Thighs, they were fine. They were discharged from the hospital a day early, before the hero work studies were over, and I was left behind to help other patients. Within my time there I learned a few things: how to do CPR, what to do in different medical emergencies, how a defibrillator works, and how to treat more minor injuries. When I went back to UA, all my classmates were talking about their work studies and how interesting and different they were, along with what they learned. As sat on my desk facing the window and staring off into the distance, one of them actually asked me what I did, and I replied nothing much, just dealing with injuries. Until Lita burst out listing what I had done for them in the hospital and how I helped them. At that moment I felt my class status rise from the ashes of unwanted and climb up to the level of bearable. Another week or so and Sleepy Sensei announces yet another joyful event for our class. He informed us that we'd be going on a class trip during the summer. After the announcement, the class got so riled up that they started planning things and decided that we'd go shopping together. They asked literally everybody in the class, even me, and since I had a weirdly good feeling about it, I agreed. It felt like something amazing would happen at the mall. Maybe we'll see Tomu. I doubt that. I quietly muttered to the voice as I felt disappointed. It was the Saturday that we had all planned to go shopping, so I was choosing what to wear, though it was quite a simple choice since I just put on an oversized dark green hoodie and black trousers. I met the rest of the class in the common room, minus Kachan, Todoroki and 3 others, and we made our way over to the mall. When we arrived, we split off into small groups, going our separate ways. Lil Kirby was still with me until she called me a bug and ran off, so I just stood there since I didn't have anything in mind to buy. As I stood there, I felt a familiar hand slip around my neck. It was one that I had felt on my arm before. "Hi there, fancy meeting you here," I heard familiar raspy voice say joyfully. At that moment my heart and mind felt flustered. It was really him, it was really Tomu. I knew I'd see him. Shigaraki's Pav. I decided to go on a walk and found myself at a mall. I searched around looking at what I could do or who I could kill until I set my sights upon a familiar face. He was wearing a dark green hoodie and had his usual puffy lot of hair sat at the top of his head. I really wanted to bug the kid or at least cause him some sort of suffering, so I approached him and wrapped one of my hands around his neck. "Hi there, fancy meeting you here," I said in a friendly and joyful way. When he heard my voice, his face lit up and he joyfully called out, "Tomu. I've missed you so much, did you miss me? We've been waiting so long." The joy in his tone seemed actually violent and dangerous to the point where I almost fell backwards. "Be quiet, kid," I commanded him. "Be silent or I'll snap your neck." His smile only grew as he replied, "Come on, Tomu, you and I both know I can't die." His playful tone made my throat dry and my head hurt. Why was he being so difficult? "Well, by time you inform someone about me, how many do you think I'll be able to kill? I'd say at least 20 before I'm caught." I threatened him by putting others' lives on the line. If he was truly a hero course student, he'd have no choice but to protect the civilians. "I don't care about them, I only care about you, Tomu." He tried to turn around and face me, but I tightened my grip. "Now I say you come shopping with me and I won't tell anyone." It was a really frustrating feeling since he had me trapped in a corner rather than me, him. I didn't want to be caught by heroes right now, and I wanted to see where the kid was going with this, so I said, "Fine, kid." In a miserable way. I released his neck. He turned to face me and said, "By the way, my name's Izuku Midoriya, but you can call me Izuku or Izu. Just call me whatever works for you." He sounded so annoyingly happy as he studied my face. Izuku's Pav. It was him, it was him, it was him. It was really him, and he really agreed to go shopping with me. I was so full of joy that I came close to squealing with excitement but stopped myself in order to not ruin our date. When he let go of my neck, I instantly spun around and examined his face, while telling him to call me Izuku. His baby blue hair was long and slightly covered his eyes. It was also scruffy and unkempt, but it suited him. His lips were dry and had a long scar across them. The skin around his eyes was dry and crusted, but he was still so cute. And once again I could see his beautiful crimson-red eyes. He really looked adorable to the point where I almost fell to the floor, but he caught my shoulder so as to not cause a scene. I led him over to a cosmetics shop, during which I told, "You know, you're so cute and adorable. I think we were destined for each other." He only replied saying, "Whatever, kid." Though since I already told him my name, I lectured him, telling him, "I told you to call me Izuku." He stayed silent for a while but then gave me a short answer saying, "Whatever, Izuku." It made me so happy to hear my boring ass name coming from Tomu's mouth, so as a response I let out a short squeal since I couldn't contain myself, though it was only loud enough for Tomu to hear. When we were in the cosmetics shop, I started heading in the direction of the makeup, grabbed some eyeliner, then went over to the other side of the shop, grabbed a few more things, paid, then left, all while receiving judgment from Tomu. After that I led us over to a cafe. I ordered a banana milkshake and Tomu ordered a creamed latte. We took our drinks and sat ourselves at a table in the corner that was partly covered from view. "Now what?" Tomu asked as we sat down. I took a long sip from my drink, took off my backpack that contained the stuff I just brought and put it all onto the table, minus the eyeliner. I pushed it over to Tomu and said, "Okay, so here's some chapstick, moisturizer, hand cream, hair treatment and eyes drops. You can take it all home with you and use it." But Tomu cut me off and asked why? With an annoyed expression, but I ignored his question and continued what I was saying. "But I want you to put some chapstick on before you kiss me." He temporarily went into a silent rage and was overflowing with shock. He clearly had no understanding of what was going on and asked why? In a shaky voice. His question made me chuckle slightly and I responded, "Well, you're gonna kiss me or else I'll tell the heroes about you and I'll stab you in the leg so that you can't run." I smiled sweetly at him as he gave me a look of disgust. "I think we were too forward." "Do you really?" "I thought we weren't forward enough," I said to myself. I redirected my attention to him and stared at him for a while. "You can kiss me wherever you want," I said, smiling. He was extremely hesitant at first, but he then reached for the chapstick, applied it to his lips and then faced my direct. "Is this your first kiss?" I asked in a teasing manner. "Shut up," he said as he leaned in and gave me a peck on the cheek. "Is that it?" I felt rather unimpressed and gave him a plain look. He shoved the things I gave him into his pockets and went back to drinking his latte as I kept staring at him. Eventually he faced my way and asked what? I didn't answer him and kept staring. We stared into each other's eyes for a while until I found the perfect opportunity to strike. I planted my lips on his and felt his dry glossed-over lips. They were rough but felt amazing. He tried to pull away but I clung onto his collar, pressing onto his lips more aggressively, not giving him a chance to break it. He eventually stopped resisting and allowed my tongue passage into his mouth. At some point I think a waitress passed by asking if we were done with our drinks but saw us and walked away. When I finally pulled away to gasp for breath, Tomu's face was absolutely filled to the brim with shock. When I caught my breath I said, "That is a kiss, my dear Tomu. And my first one as well." He just stared at me, still confused about the situation. I reached over to him, gave him a hug and whispered in his ear, "And I plan for you to be my first in everything." Shigaraki Spav. What the fuck just happened? 1 second I was facing the key Izuku, and the next his lips were on mine. My mind had literally turned to goo in the middle of it and I just sat there confused as hell. "I think I can see the light. Sister, I'm coming. I hope I never have to see you on the other side, Izuku." He then pulled away gasping for breath and I returned back to the land of the living as I stared into his eyes. I was alive but I felt like part of my soul escaped and I didn't think it had ever come back. I had this feeling that he cut my lifespan in half within those short moments. He then leaned forward again and I braced for impact, but instead he wrapped his arms around me and whispered in my ear, "And I plan for you to be my first in everything." When he pulled away my heart felt both empty and whole, and my face felt like it was burning. What is this feeling? Why do I feel like this? I contemplated. All I've ever felt before was anger, so what is this feeling? I'll ask Kurogiri when I get back. I turned to face the table and slammed my head down on it, closed my eyes and denied reality. "Oh, hi there Midoriya," I heard a cheerful female voice say. "Hi Pinky," Izuku said back in a monotone voice, different from how he spoke to me. "I told you to call me Mina." "And who's that?" she asked, likely talking to me. I kept my head down, still dizzy and confused about what had happened and what was currently happening. "Him? Oh, he's my soulmate," Izuku said bluntly. I heard the girl gasps as she yelled out about how amazing that was. "So, is he sleeping, and can I meet him properly?" There was a long pause before Izuku replied. "Yes, he is sleeping and you can't meet him." I could just imagine him saying all that with a plain expression that was unreadable in any situation. Also he's really shy and has a habit on attempting to kill people who shock him or alarm him." He whispered the last part. "Then why are you still alive?" I thought. "Oh okay, well anyway remember that we're all meeting up in 30 minutes to go grab something to eat," she said as her voice slowly became quieter. "Okay, I'll remember." When the girl could no longer be heard, Izuku sat beside me again and leaned his head on me while I stayed face down on the table. "Why'd you say soulmate? I don't have any relation to you at all and don't want anything to do with you." Before he could reply, the waitress before came over and asked us to leave because we were finished and there weren't enough seats for everyone. We left the cafe and he quickly answered, "Because I love you." What did he say? After that I assumed I had either misheard him or was hallucinating, so I ignored it and continued walking. Izuku's pav. Happy, 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 happy. I felt so happy. I was walking beside Tomu as we made our way to the entrance of the mall after we just shared a passionate kiss. I felt like I could die satisfied with life and at peace, though I still can't literally die. I wanna die by his hands. He tried to ask me for some questions about events related to UA and All Might, but I told him I refuse. If I tell you information, then that'd be a toxic relationship where you use me and then throw me away. I pouted after saying it like a little kid that wanted a new toy. He replied in a stern tone saying, "We're not in any sort of relationship and I have nothing to do with you." Ouch. I then went on a rant about how he was wrong and listed all the ways that proved we were in a relationship, along with everything we had in common and why we were destined for each other, but I'm pretty sure he stopped listening at some point. When we got to the entrance, Tomu said "See ya," with a paranoid look on his face. I tried to reach forward and kiss him again, but he put the palm of his hand on my forehead and kept me at arm's length. Since I was too short and my arms weren't long enough, I couldn't reach him and stood there sulking. I said goodbye to Tomu with tears flooding out my eyes and we went our separate ways. He went towards some suspicious alley and I went towards the food section in the mall in order to meet the rest of my classmates. When I arrived at the front of the food section, I could see Ida, Lil Kirby, Pervert, Non-Existent, and the Froggy. They were still waiting for the others to arrive, so I joined them in the wait and talked to the voice for a bit. "I hope Tomu uses all the products we gave him." "So do I mumbled with an enlightened and fresh look on my face. "I have a feeling we'll see him again soon, so let's not threat too much." I could just imagine the voice pumping a tiny fist in the air at that moment. Eventually the rest arrived, we ate our meal and made our way back to UA as a group. For the next 2 days I just sat in my room doing the same thing as usual, drawing pictures of Tomu and filling in my notebook while watching anime, true bliss. Then after those 2 days it was time. I packed my bag and set off to the coach where we would then be taken on our class field trip, +1B. I had a good feeling about this trip, just like the one I had before. Izuku's pav. "I'm soda red," I yelled out as I trudged through the woods, not knowing where I was going. "Get out of my way, you damn Deku!" Kachan screamed as he propelled himself through the air, bombing me into the process. "What are you doing, Midoriya? You need to hurry up," Todoroki said in his usual monotone voice as he passed by, leaving a trail of ice. What was I supposed to do anyway? I can commit suicide, but I can't literally suicide squad my way through this. If I were to use my quirk, I'd just temporarily black out but still be in the same spot. After running for what felt like 2 miles, my lethargy kicked in and I full-on face-planted the floor. Before that I had already broke and re-healed my legs 4 times and had basically spent up all my energy. I am one with the soil, and the soil is with me. I muttered as I lay there like a log. If anyone were to pass me, they'd surely assume I was dead. This is my life now. After those words I, somehow, drifted off to sleep. After I had awoken, I found myself on a patch of grass, not the same dry, brown dirt from before. I looked up to see my class, +1B, eating a buffet of food that was laid out on the table. Once I had gained the effort to move, I got up from the floor and looked at the food, only to find that only 1/5 of it remained. Sorry bro, we were starved after all that, but we saved you some leftovers for you," the redhead said to me as I stared at the table. I honestly didn't really care, after all I was used to being starved by my shitty-ass father, so there was no real harm done. I grabbed a paper plate, filled it to the brim with different types of chicken and made my way to the room that we were staying in, walking past some kid along the way. "Wait, who picked us up?" the voice asked. I turned back around, walked to the table again and straight up asked, "Hey, so who brought me over here then?" They looked around the table at each other until the redhead answer. "Shoji did." Since I never really made much of an effort to remember many people's names, I obviously had no clue who Shoji was. "Who's that?" I asked bluntly. "Oh, it's that manly bro over there at the end of the table." We made eye contact, I gave him a slight nod and headed back to the room, again. The next day Sleepy Sensei announced that we would be doing quirk training, so everyone separated and went off doing their own little activities, leaving me just stood there. I went up to him and asked, "What am I supposed to do?" He looked at me for a moment trying to remember what my quirk was until it finally hit him. "Right, your quirk allows you to regrow limbs and heal." He was close but not quite. "Do you know the uppermost limits of your quirk?" Well, obviously I knew that since I had a whole notebook of research, but I don't think he had ever actually seen it. "I can't die and my wounds often take a while to heal." I think after that Sleepy Sensei had no idea what to make me do, so he sent me over to some buff kitty cat and made me do physical training. At some point Class 1B joined in with the action and the rest of the first day went on like that until we ate and went into the public baths. I waited until everyone else got out since I felt like if I went in there I would be cheating on Tomu. The next day we did more quirk training exercises and, to escape the cat's cruel training, I love cats but that guy was evil, I went deeper into the woods and trained my quirk by smashing my arm with a rock and then seeing how many times I could heal it before passing out. I managed a total of 7 times before passing out. All hits were consecutive and during which I hadn't moved many other limbs, so in actual combat I can imagine that I'd manage at least 5 before passing out, at the max. After waking up I found myself in the same spot, lying on my stomach. I flipped over and was able to see the beautiful twinkling stars and a luminous blue wall of flames. They reminded me of Tomu. Wait. Wall of flames. I hurriedly sat up only to see some traveling flames, slowly nearing me. They were currently at least 10 meters away from me but still alarmed me when they came into view. "What's going on?" the voice asked. "I don't know," I replied, slightly shocked. "Why'd it have to be fire though? We're still afraid of fire." "I know," I yelled. "Now shut up for a moment." I ran back towards the building we were staying at, stumbling in the process. As I made my way back I saw Sleepy Sensei, who let out a sigh of relief when he saw me unharmed. "There you are." He took a pause for a moment before commanding me, "Go back to the HQ now, get yourself to safety and stay there." I listened to his words and started running back only to stop when I felt a weird feeling. It was the same one from before I met Tomu at the mall. I flipped back around and convinced myself this has to do with Tomu. I then ran back towards the blue flames and into the woods of mysteries, where all things were hidden by the black of night. I decided to make my way up to a cliff on the side of the hill so that I could get a clear view of what was happening and so that I could find Tomu, but came into the view of some large, gross-muscled guy and the kid that I saw before. The kid was cowering fear and I knew that as a hero course student I had to save him. Ugh, but did I really have time for that? I'm sure that in the time it would take me to save the kid Tomu would have come and gone by then. As I was about to turn around, a conveniently placed twig snapped under the weight of my foot and the muscle man quickly turned to me and flattened me like a pancake. Okay, ouch. That actually really hurt, but at least now I knew how much pancakes had to suffer. Thinking I was dead, which I definitely was, he turned back to face the kid, but before I let him flatten him, I revived and scooped the kid in my arms and tumbled down the cliff with him. "Ah!" the villian yelled. "Now I remember you. You're one of the kids on the kill list. Shigaraki specified that we need to kill you. I dove into a small hole in a tree with the shaking kid in my arms. The muscle villian slid down the side of the hill with a loud thud and then yelled out again. I'm gonna find you again, kid, and when I do I'll cut you down so small that you'll never be able to survive. He stomped off, and when his footsteps could no longer be heard I ran in the opposite direction with the kid still in my arms. I'll have him know we already tried mincing ourselves. The voice said proudly, for some unknown reason. Shut up, I said as I kept running without looking back. Shigaraki's pav. I decided that we needed to do something that would push All Might over the edge, and when I watched the sports festival I knew immediately what we should do. I composed 2 lists, a kill and catch list. On the catch list I specified Bakugo, the winner of the sports festival, and an aggressive one at that. On the kill list I specified Izuku, but I knew no one could kill him. It was more for a bit of a laugh and payback for what he did at the mall. I sent them all off to the place that the mole informed us about and sat there waiting for them to return. I'm so bored. Izuku's pav. Shit, shit, shit. We're so fucked. It's over, kid. The best thing we can do now is try to dig our graves in preparation of our deaths. I was literally screaming as I carried the kid in one of my arms like some sort of luggage. He kinda just sat there in silence. I was running full speed ahead from, drum roll please, my own classmate. Yay. I actually managed to ditch the muscle man, but now I'm being chased by a goddamn shadow, a shadow. At this point I had already forgotten about my quirk and was determined to live so that Tomu could kill me later. If I'm like this, then what's the kid thinking? After 3 minutes of running, some figure crawled out of the bushes, and since I could never see well in the dark I slide tackled it only to find that it was that guy Shoji from before. We both quickly stood back up and ran from the shadow following behind us. Midoriya, Shoji yelled loud enough so that I could hear him over the breaking of trees. We need to find some source of light or fire. Do you know where Todoroki or Bakugo are? Why would I know that? I wasn't exactly close with anyone, so I didn't have a bloody clue. I dunno. I was asleep for like 10 hours. I'm not sure if he heard me or not, but after that the shadow swung its giant fist down at us, causing us to disperse in opposition directions. And what do you know, the bird brain decided to follow me as I dove right. Fuck. I squealed as I ran full speed ahead. After passing out I never ate anything, so my energy was still really low, plus I wasted a hell of a lot to recover from my pancake state. After running for 10 more minutes and being at my limit I fell down, kid still in hand, then heard a voice. Get out of here, you damn nerd. It was Kachan, and I had never been so happy to hear his voice before. I hurriedly got up and ran closer to him and Todoroki, yelling for one of them to make fire or at least do something. The shadow bird then charged at the villian they were facing, defeated him, and then Kachan bombarded the bird until the shadow was suppressed and controllable again. We then marched on towards, I dunno where. We met Shoji along the way and kept walking. We ran into the Lil Kirby and the Froggy. They were with some schoolgirl and were bleeding everywhere. Massive exaggeration, but they were still bleeding. The schoolgirl slipped away and we were all back together again and decided we would back to HQ. Until, of course, something had to go wrong. Todoroki pointed out that Kachan and the birdie were gone, and then some circus villain started monologuing, giving us a great opportunity to try and go after him, but we couldn't reach him. He jumped away from tree to tree like some sort of ninja, and we created a plan to follow him. Lil Kirby would make us float, Froggy would throw us, and Todoroki would try to make us land somewhat safely. So we put our plan into action, and me, Shoji and Todoroki were thrown into the air. I left the kid with the other two. When we landed, those two stood on the ice and slid down it while I just straight up face planted it and got impaled. -3 points for me, so I had to waste more energy just to heal that. When we came face to face with the villain, a few more appeared besides him, the schoolgirl, a guy covered in severe burns, and another guy in a skin-tight bodysuit and black and white mask. The circus villain flashed the small little orbs at us, but Shoji knocked them out of his hand and caught them. But what do you know, it's not them. The circus villain took off his mask and stuck out his tongue, showing 2 orbs in his mouth, so I did what any rational person would do. I ran up to him and punched him in the gut until he coughed them out. The rest of the villains tried to reach for the orbs, but Todoroki caught them before they had the chance and they were safe. I tried to rejoin the others, but before I had the chance the Scar villain grabbed the back of my neck and dragged me through the familiar back and purple swirly portal. I gave the others an excited smile and a thumbs up before I appeared on the other side. Todoroki's POV. We were too late. We saved Bakugo and Tokoyami but were too late to save Midoriya. After the villains had left through the portal, the 2 reverted back to their natural forms, both confused from what had happened. I explained how Midoriya saved them and we made our way back to HQ. The whole way back Bakugo stayed silent. When we were back we saw Ida and the others there. A few of us had some minor injuries, but other than that no one was seriously injured. By the time the police and fire department came, alongside some pro-heroes, all of us were at the HQ, minus Midoriya. Mr. Izuku asked all of us if we knew where Midoriya was, so we went up with him and told him everything we knew, and also had to tell the police about it. I felt so frustrated and helpless, I couldn't even save or help him. I was too distracted. I needed to improve as a hero, and I needed to try and save my friend. Shigaraki's POV. As I sat at the bar counter I heard the rest climb back through the portal. Hiya, Tomu, damn it, they screwed up. I thought as I turned around with a face full of annoyance, and what do you know? I was right, they screwed up big time. Not only did they bring the wrong fucking kid, they brought that fucking kid. Why? I asked Dabi. We had 2 of our targets but this kid got in our way. Would you rather we have brought no one and have done all this for nothing? He said spitefully. It was true that now we can at least use the kid to agitate All Might and provoke him, but why this kid? With a face full of such extreme annoyance I commanded him, whatever, just throw him in the basement and tie him down. Do not give him any space to move. Dabi let out a long and tired sigh, then dragged the kid down a flight of stairs. Come on Tomu, surely you wanted to see me again too, after all we're destined for one another. The kid yelled out. And gag his mouth too. I added. Dabi's POV. So annoying. He complained at me for bring this kid, but come on, at least I brought someone, right? I dragged the kid behind me on a flight of stairs but stopped for a moment when I heard him say, come on Tomu, surely you wanted to see me again too, after all we're destined for one another. Did it mean that Shigaraki and this kid were acquainted in some way or another? When I made it to the bottom of the stairs I asked the kid, how do you and Shigaraki know each other? The smile that was already on his face grew larger as he answered. Tomu? Well, me and Tomu are soulmates after all. We're destined for one another. He said it in a dreamy voice and my first thought was, this kid is screwed up in the head, similarly to how Shigaraki is. After I put the gag around his mouth I came up with a brilliant idea. When I walked up the stairs and out of the basement, I walked up to Shigaraki and put my hand on his shoulder. Since you know the kid so well you can take care of him, boss man. I walked away with an evil smirk as he shot daggers at me. Ha! I thought. This'll be funny. Izuku's POV. I was bored, my mouth was dry, I really wanted to see Tomu, but I was happy. Happy that I could see him again after so long, 4 days. I finally had a chance to see him again and I wouldn't waste it. Tomu, Tomu, Tomu. La, 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 musical notes, the voice sung in my head. I wanted to sing along with it but could only produce a weird muffled sound, which was a shame. After around an hour I heard the door reopen again, someone started walking down the steps and when they came into view I could see Tomu. I tried to yell out to him and greet him but I still just let out a muffled sound. He was carrying a plastic cup full of water, probably so that I couldn't cut my hands off or at least try, and placed it on a small table next to me. Why'd it have to be you? He muttered as he sat on the bottom step. Why'd he have to grab you of all people? You're the one who annoys me the most. After being lost in thought for a while, Tomu stood up and took the gag off me. I prepared myself to yell out from overexcitement, but he covered my mouth with his hand. If you shut up and behave, I won't have to gag you again, understood? I nodded my head and he released my mouth. Straight away a smile formed over my face and I just stared deep into his eyes. Looks like you've been using the products I gave you, I said joyfully as his face turned a slight pink. Whatever he mumbled. I smiled some more and then listed what was different about him. Your eyes have more of a shine to them, your skin looks smoother and hair looks more alive. You basically look less like a corpse compared to before. He turned away to face the wall and my smile extended beyond comprehension. But I'm not sure about how much your lips have changed, so there's only one way to test them. He turned around and approached me. I prepared myself to kiss him, but instead he grabbed the cup, shoved it in my mouth and caused me to choke. After I somewhat had a drink, he turned around and walked away, leaving me to sit in the basement alone. I'll bring you food later, he muttered and then slammed the door behind him. The next few days went on similarly to this. He brought me food and water then left me alone. Every time he seemed so shy and nervous, I felt like I was getting closer to him. There were the occasional moments where we had short conversations, but they were often more about All Might's weaknesses and stuff about UA, which kinda made me jealous. There was this one time where I'm pretty sure it was the night since when was wearing PJs. He walked down to the basement drunk as hell. I could smell the alcohol radiating off of him. He came up to me, patted me on the head and said, "You're so cute, Izu?" in a slightly wobbly tone. Since I was quite tired, I wasn't too sure how to respond, so I let a small smile appear on my face and replied, "You too, Tomu." At that moment I was genuinely happy and sincere. It was the first time he took actions into his own hands and the first time he had ever properly complimented me. I wish we could be together forever, Izu, but you're a suicidal hero in training and I'm a villian, a bored genocidal one at that. He then leaned forward and gave me a gentle hug as he whispered, "I like you too," in my ears, which caused me to blush intensely. He moved away from me and stumbled back up the stairs, leaving the door open and disappeared. Shigaraki's Pav. Fuck. What the hell did I say to him last night? I wasn't in my right fucking mind, but at least I didn't do anything. I thought about what my drunken self did as I sat upon my bed draped head to toe in a field of blankets, blushing like a blood-soaked blueberry. What am I supposed to do now? I began clawing at my neck, searching for answers in my mind, but they never came. Eventually I got up because I didn't want him to starve, and got him some jam toast and a plastic cup of water. As I walked down the stairs I heard Izuku say, "Well, I would be a bottom," because he stopped what he was saying when he saw me. I saw Izuku and Dabi sat together talking, which made my chest constrict and my mouth dry. "Hiya, Tomu," Izuku said, full of joy and excitement. Dabi stood up and started walking out the room. "Go get him, man," he whispered in my ear. What the fuck were they talking about? I walked up to Izuku, put his food onto the table and sat where Dabi was. We stayed in silence for a short while until Izuku said, "You sure you're not up for that kiss I offered earlier?" The playfulness in his tone was killing me. I reached for the collar of his white shirt, we had him change clothes a while ago, and leaned into him, landing my lips on his and giving him no time to react. When I pulled away he gave me a devilish smile. "Shut up, Izu," I said as I pulled in for another kiss, this one lasting much longer. I spent a lot of that day with Izuku, just talking and kissing, until later in the evening when I was going to fetch him some food. I heard a knock on the door along with some voice saying, "They're the pizza guy," until they literally knocked my poor door down, creating a cloud of dust. We probably should have cleaned that more. Then out from the dust came the pain in the ass hero, All Might. After that the events were quite rapidly. The Nomu appeared, we were teleported, Sensei fought All Might and was captured, and the rest of us got away. I think during all the chaos Izu was still sat in the basement. I gave him my number at the very least, so I hope I can see and speak to him again. I'll miss him. Izuku's pav. His lips felt quite soft this time. Good. It meant he was using the chapstick that I gave him. I gave a soft smile as I listened to the commotion from upstairs. Maybe it's a party? No, you dumbass. It's clearly a rescue group to save me. And it's probably led by All Might. I pouted as I thought about what might be happening to Tomu. After a while, some large guy covered in bright orange flames came storming down the stairs and yelled to the people above about my whereabouts. I was then taken out of the building and led to a police car where they then drove me to a safe location. They took me back to UA and was greeted by all of my worried classmates. Why were they worried about us? It doesn't concern them. I know. I said to myself as I stared at the floor while they huddled around me like waddling penguins. Deku, are you okay? It was Lil Kirby, but why was she calling me Deku? I guess I am really worthless, I said under my breath but with a joyful smile. I didn't give a single shit. I don't want to be useful to Tomu, I want him to be useful to me. I want him to end my loneliness and save me. I looked back up and gave them all a cheerful smile, with a hint of my psychotic self leaking out. Can you all get the fuck out of my way? I'm tired and want to go to sleep. They then went dead silent and allowed me to pass through them. Severs them right. I let out a small snicker and went back to my room, only to write more about Tomu and draw a notebook full of pictures of him. Once again I was lucky enough to go through more counseling. Is this the 5th time? I wasn't counting. During that time I massively talked about the one I loved, asking if they would help me figure out if it was a one-sided crush or if we were dating. They were no help at all, but oh well, they determined I was healthy enough and let me stop counseling early. After my counseling was over I also had to go to an interview with the press who kept flashing me with cameras and screaming out questions, which really pissed me off. Firstly, I said as they all hushed down, "Shut the fuck up." Secondly, nothing happened me when I was kidnapped, and finally, just piss off and leave me the hell alone so I can live in peace. They went silent before giving me more questions, assuming that being with the villians may have changed me and made more villainous. I bowed my head down, said thank you, now piss off. One more time. I walked away leaving the teachers to talk for me. Recently, whenever I saw someone, classmate or stranger, they'd often avoid eye contact with me, assuming I was some sort of delinquent or other, though it was quite peaceful. My classmate dropped my class status from its recovering state all the way down to the depths of no return, burden. It turns out that Todoroki, Kachan, Ida, and Creation Girl went to save me, though I of course wasn't there. When they saw me back at the dorm room I couldn't tell if they were annoyed, grateful, or what. I had tried messaging and calling the number Tomu gave me time and time again, but it hadn't gone through and went straight to voicemail, and I started feeling worried about him. I hope he is okay. I told the voice as I sat at the top of the dorm building, peering off into the distance. I hope he's still alive and kickin'. I looked down at the ground below me, thinking of jumping, but turned away and walked back to my room. I hope we can see Hi again. Izuku's pav. The long gashes along my arm sent an excruciating pain rushing throughout my body, more extreme than before. I thought I had become numb both physically and emotionally, but I was wrong. It hurt, it really hurt, and I just didn't understand. Stop it. It hurts, stop hurting us. Stop hurting yourself. Shut up. I told the voice coldly as the blade penetrated my skin once more and left a deep bloody wound. The blade lacerated my skin again and again, and I let out a sharp cry as the adrenaline rushed to my brain. Stop it. Why are you doing this? Just stop. The voice pleaded with me, as I made one more cut. The wounds on my arm totaled up to 16, from my elbow all the way down to my wrist. Just shut up. I told the voice as I took deep breaths to relieve myself of the pain. Once it stopped affecting me as much, I continued, this is nothing anyway. Remember what we were like before, Tomu. Stop it. We're hurting. This worse than before, it's different. Something's wrong. I ignored the voice's desperate pleads, then laid down on my bed, but could not sleep for a while. I was too concerned about Tomu. The truth was that I cut myself to distract me from everything. I used to do it a lot before Tomu. It had already been a full month since I last saw him, and the stress was getting to me. It didn't help that I was also isolated from the other students and Tomu, who was the only one who would look me straight in the eye. I put my arms over my face, forgetting about the wound until I gifted myself a face full of blood. I sat up and spoke to myself, why hasn't it healed yet? I examined my arm some more, only to find the wounds as fresh as ever. I decided to ignore it for now and check it in the morning. I wrapped it with bandages and drifted off into a deep and miserable slumber. It didn't heal, I said to myself in a dull and grumpy voice as I stared at my arm, with bags under my eyes. More specifically, it healed but not properly. Usually my quirk allows me a clean heal, leaving no marks or scars. It even heals bones and sets them in place, but this was different. This time my arm had scarred up and left behind 16 deep thick lines along my arm. Fuck. I said to myself, thinking about how I was going to deal with the problem at hand. It hurts. Shut the fuck up, you bastard, I know it hurts. I covered my arm in fresh bandages and flopped back onto my bed. When I could finally be bothered to move, I grabbed my notebook, found a fresh page and summed up my quirk. Notebook entry. Quirk, Immortality. Type, mutant. Ability, heals any wounds, broken bones or injuries. Revives from death. Limits, cannot be controlled at specific moments, often takes a while to heal fully. Trump card, heal within 2 seconds at the cost of my energy, use around 5 times before passing out. Drawbacks, no type of drug or alcohol works on me due to them potentially being harmful, so my body processes them and treats them as though they are no more than food and water. New development, quirk is taking excessively long to heal and scars have been left behind. Recent events that may have affected quirk: met Tomu, gained a wider range of emotions, haven't died in a while, Tomu used his quirk on me, unsuccessful. I pulled away from my notebook and thought out loud, wait. Tomu used his quirk on me, right? Where did he first touch me? My eyes instantly shot to my right arm that was still covered by my jacket sleeve. I cut my left arm. I slowly pushed the sleeve up my arm, waiting for what I would see. Oh, I said with an expressionless, blank look on my face. I pulled my sleeve back down and ignored that arm, focusing my attention back onto my left arm. There was nothing I could really do about it, so I put on my school uniform and headed to class. In class I was treated like a ghost, not a spooky ghost, more like those boring sheet ghosts that you would see in a crappy haunted house, the type that would annoy you since it just gets in the way and wastes time and takes effort to walk around. Normally, when I would enter the classroom and see everyone fall silent when I entered, it made me laugh, but this time I was too paranoid. Not about me, I don't give a shit about me, it was about Tomu. He still hadn't replied after so long. When I sat down for class, Sleepy Sensei announced that we would be taking our hero license exams tomorrow. Woohoo! Another boring-ass event at this busy school. The rest seemed hyped about it since we would be able to be semi-official heroes after it, but it just sounded like hard work to me. The next day the wound still hadn't healed, though the scars did let up a bit and my pale skin was starting to go back to normal. I put on my same uniform, always minus the blazer and with a hoodie, and made my way over to the bus. It was a boring ride, a boring entrance and just overall boring. They then crammed us all into some stuffy room and expected us to wait there for a while. They then announced the event, raised the platform, and allowed us to run rampant. Most of Class 1A stuck together, minus a few others, and I made my way towards a rural city area. I found a simple building with a long conference room table, climbed under it and fell asleep while dreaming of him. When I opened my eyes I saw some puffy-lipped girl with a weird hat. "Are you Izuku?" she asked in an annoyingly fake tone. "Yes, I mumbled as I turned the other way. "Oh cool. Tomura wanted me to give you this." The moment I heard his name I flipped around and stared at her determinedly until she gave me what she had. She handed over a simplistic blue flip phone then happily skipped away. "I think that was the schoolgirl," I said, but quickly forgot about her the second the phone turned on. There was only one contact inputted on it, so there was only one person it could likely be. I pressed on the only contact and held it against my ear. When the beeping stopped I said hello. In anticipation. "Did you miss me?" The raspiness of the voice and the familiarity of the words. There's no doubt about it, it was Tomu. Shigaraki's Pav. I had a feeling that something wasn't right, something was missing, something about me felt empty. It was my hollow shell of a heart. It longed to be with Izuku, but at the same time I felt something else. It was a strange sense of desire, something that I had never felt about anything before. I want to end all heroes and destroy this society, but I didn't care that excessively. I just wanted to do what I want, but what did I want now? I gave Toga specific instructions for when she entered the hero exams. I told her to find Izuku. I showed a picture that I took of him and everything, and then demanded that she give him the phone as well, since my phone was broken and I had to change numbers. At the current moment, I was waiting from a phone call from Izuku. I didn't know what exactly I wanted to talk about, but I wanted to at least talk. Anything would do as long as I could hear his voice. And there's something wrong with me, I thought as I dug my nails deep into my neck. This is stupid, I am stupid. What even are we? Are we dating? Friends with benefits? Or have I just read all the signs wrong right from the very beginning? Before I could scratch my neck to the point where a river was pouring out, the phone vibrated and I lunged towards it, desperately trying to answer. "Did you miss me?" I said in my usual voice that I assumed he'd remember, as I suppressed my extreme excitement. "Tomu?" he said excitedly but also full of great sorrow. I could literally imagine the tears pouring out of his eyes right now. "Izuku's Pav." I was so happy to the point that I was crying tears of joy. It was really him. I felt like my heart just had a mental breakdown while my brain blew itself up. "Tomu, where have you been? Why haven't you answered? I've been so worried." I sounded like my mum. It wasn't particularly a bad thing since I still loved her, but it just seemed so out of character for me. "My phone broke and we had to find a new base," he informed me simplistically, causing me to raise an eyebrow at him, although he obviously couldn't see it. "So why did you contact me now of all times?" I said as I tried to compose myself and wipe the tears out of my eyes. Did he possibly just want to see how we were doing?" I smirked as the voice said exactly what I was thinking. "I wanted to ask if you wanted to join the League of Villains and stay at our new hideout." He sounded so nervous that it was actually sweet. "How about a compromise? We book a room and the others stay at the base so that he suddenly cut me off when he changed his original idea. Then how about you destroy UA security and I can visit you occasionally?" It was a fair idea, but the problem was that it benefited him too much. "I can't do that, but I can make my room a security-free zone." He was about to answer me until the frequency was jammed and I couldn't get any signal. It had to be someone else's quirk at work. I got out from under the table and reached for the blade strapped to the back of my thigh. "Someone's gonna die tonight," I said to myself as I held the blade up to my face accompanied by a devilish smirk. When I made it to the basement of the building I hid behind a large support pole. I could see a group of 5 people who had made preparations in the building. "Okay, I have jammed all communication and stole the electricity from this building and the 3 closest, so that should be enough to last me throughout the exam." I heard a female voice say. "We need to take her out now." I nodded my head in agreement and snuck a peek to check which one it was. Okay. It was the girl with bobbed gray hair and wearing a camouflaged outfit. Judging by how she's wearing camouflage, we can assume that her quirk likely involves being close to the target, since it helps for her to hide from the target. The voice was right, but we also needed to be in close range. I only had 2 blades on me, no firearms or anything. The other people with her were also a problem. "Hey, why Yuki, do you have any visuals of anyone outside?" a shy stuttering male asked. "No. I had set up at least 3 spies around the perimeter, but no one has passed by." They kept having conversations like this for a while until the one who was dubbed Yuki spoke. "Wait. I have visuals on a student from Shiketsu, and he's alone. He's stopped on some small bridge and now he's just waiting." They decided to split up. The electric quirk girl and Yuki girl stayed behind and stayed on lookout while the other 3 left for the Shiketsu guy. Perfect? When given the chance, I jumped out from the shadows and slit the spy girl's throat. I covered her mouth and dragged her to the side. She might live, she might die, didn't really concern me what happened. The electric girl realized the other one was missing and went to search around for her. When she made her way round the corner, I plunged my already bloody blade into her neck. I'm sure the last thing she saw was my twisted smile as she gasped for air. "Whoops," I said to myself as her body went crashing down. Might have overdone that one. For the sake of it, I used the red balls provided and lit up all of the patches on each girl. The patches on me lit green and told me to head over to the waiting room, but instead I went back under the conference table and rang Tomu again. "Are you okay?" he asked straight away with a slightly shaky voice as he tried to compose himself. "Yeah," I said with a large sigh. "That's the first time we've killed someone." I ignored the voice's words and aimed my attention back onto Tomu, changing my tone and trying not to sound so dreary. "So Tomu, what do you think about my dorm room idea?" I just pushed all my negative thoughts out of my head and focused on what I cared about most. "Oh yeah, that's alright, though if any of the other students come near the room I'll kill them." I let out a little giggle and replied, "Deal." As I made my way to the waiting rooms, I washed off the blood on my blades and clothes and hid the phone in my pocket. When I got there, I saw most of the students in UA and heard a loud announcement from the speakers. "And that's it, all 100 students have made it through and the next round will begin shortly. Let's hurry this up, I'm so tired." He sounded so tired and depressed, kinda like Sleepy Sensei, and me at times. When the first round began, I just walked over to a cliff area, just mindlessly skipping around like a child until I heard someone scream, "Hello, peep." I looked down to see a middle-aged woman holding a child in her arms. I slid down the bank and asked, "You good?" Her mood rapidly changed and she said, "Deduction points for you." I didn't understand since I didn't listen to the rules and looked at the child. "Oh. A concussion from a head wound. Yeah, I've had one of those and they suck." She looked at me with disappointment as I scooped the kid out of her arms and lay him on the ground. I placed him on his side and told her to leave him like that as I took the bandages out of my pocket. I put them over the kid's head wound and the cut on the woman's arm, and when the kid woke up we walked to a medical corner that was set up. The rest of the trial went on like this, and when it was announced I managed to get 72, which wasn't that bad, though didn't give a damn. However, I started to be grateful when I heard that those who didn't pass would have catch-up lessons. After it all, we had a long drive back to UA and I prepared my preparations so that Tomu could come to my room freely. Shigaraki's POV. When we spoke on the phone for a second time, I could tell something was wrong, but what? Was it like before where he was both happy and sad to see me? No. He wasn't sad, he was just distraught. When I next see him I'll ask him. As I lay in bed like a dead starfish, thinking about Izu, I heard my phone vibrate but couldn't be bothered to move. I slowly pulled my phone to my head and answered the call. I knew it was Izu, but I was so tired from thinking of him all night, without getting a wink of sleep. "Hi," I said into the phone, adding a yawn at the end. "Aw, were you thinking of me all night?" he asked in a playful tone, causing me to blush. Luckily he couldn't see me. "How did you do in the exams?" I asked, ignoring his question. "I passed," he said blandly. "Did anything happen?" I wanted answers about why he was like that on the phone, and I tried to be as discreet as possible. "No, nothing really. Layer." I thought as I sighed, pulling the phone away from me. Well, anyway, I've sorted the security, so can you give the phone to the portal man so that I can give him whatever info he needs to teleport ya? His words honestly made me so excited since it meant I could literally see him again, but I held it in. He needs the coordinates and he's called Kurogiri. He let out a light chuckle, then I yelled out, still not bothering to leave my bed. Kurogiri. 1 minute later he entered my room and I passed him the phone. Hello? He asked into the phone since I didn't tell him who it was. Heya, Kuro. So. The coordinates to my room are 324 to 656 and all the security has been shut off, so you'll be good. Oh, and tell Tomu that he has to bring popcorn and Doritos. Oh, one last thing, bring PJs. He then put the phone down and Kurogiri looked at me strangely. So when are you going? I threw my pillow at him then shunned him out of my room. Stupid Izu? I said to myself, blushing as I slammed my face into my one remaining pillow. Izuku's POV. I had made the entire top floor of the dorms a security-free zone, no cameras, no mics, no sensors, and there is no way to find out Tomu is here at all. The only problem was my classmates who are always busy butting into other people's drama, but I have a plan. Firstly, I have barricaded the door to the elevator, then I have put a giant poster in between the elevator and my room, towards the start of the hallway. It won't stop them but will give me time to hide Tomu, and finally, as a last precaution, I hid various weapons within the hallway and room, so it should be good. I sat on my bed waiting for Tomu until it hit me. We never specified a time, I said to the voice as shock flooded my face. I grabbed my pillow and screamed into it, trying to muffle my suffering. Damn it! I screamed. But surely he'll realize it and come, right? The voice was delusional, it didn't understand. This was Tomu we were talking about. He was a more tired and bored creature than me. If he was lying in bed when we called, then there's no way he'd be bothered to move. I sat up and took a moment to breathe. I'm sure he'll come. I, of course, was also delusional since the voice was literally my subconscious, but I still couldn't shake the feeling that he'd stand me up. It was the day after and he never came. I stayed up all night sobbing into my pillow, and throughout that entire time I did not see nor hear him. He just didn't bother. I'm sure he'll come tonight, I said as I let out another whimper. Maybe he just didn't come cause today's a school day, but don't worry, today is Friday, so I'm sure he'll come later. Those types of basic time standards don't work for him. After all, he's a villain with nothing to do. I'm sure he just felt too tired. I laid back down and stayed in bed for an extra 3 hours. I arrived at class 4 hours late. I had to get ready, eat and walk to class on top of my extra sleep, and when I entered, all their eyes instantly shot at me. What? I asked as I raised an eyebrow and let out an annoyed tone. They all turned back to the teacher and ignored me as I sat at my desk. Midoriya, see me after class, said the lady in a skin-tight suit and mask. I stared out of the window and didn't pay attention to a single thing she said throughout the rest of the lesson. Midoriya. 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 The hero woman said as my head shot up from my desk and I saluted at her. Yes, ma'am. I fell asleep. Don't mock me, she said, looking down on me. I wasn't mocking her, I was just startled is all, and I was having a dream about the first ever quirk war. Okay, listen up. You can't just show up in the middle of class out of nowhere 4 hours late. If you were ill, you should have sent a notice, or if there's something wrong, you should report it. I've got a good idea. How about we tell her the truth and tell her about how we're depressed and want to be loved and valued by a villain? I hushed the voice and looked back at her directly in the eyes. No one can help me. Why can't people understand that? The counseling and therapy does not work. I still have the voice in my head, I still suffer from depression, and I still have no one who gives a single shit about me. I turned around and left the classroom for now at least. I muttered under my breath as a smirk appeared on my face. I will make him mine. In my room I basically prepared for a satanic ritual. I had wax candles lit everywhere, a stack of anime on the floor like some sort of offering, and the fact that my room was so dark added to the creepiness. The only thing out of place was me in my soft, floofy, long-sleeved PJ hoodie colored bright pink. I sat there cheerfully, not giving up hope as I waited for Tomu. I waited for 3 hours and it was now 11 p.m. but I was still hopeful. At around 1 a.m. a swirling portal appeared in my room and out came Tomu, who instantly pushed me against the bed and pinned me down, causing me to blush violently. "Sorry I took so long, Izu?" His personality had literally did a complete 180 from how he started. He started off shy and alarmed when I kissed him, but now he's taking initiative. I knew he'd be a top. He gave me a passionate kiss as his cold hand snuck down my hoodie, causing me to shiver. He really did enjoy taking advantage of how I wouldn't disintegrate at his touch. Eventually, he let go of me and prevented himself from going any further. Before he did, he needed to know something. "What are we, Izu?" That was exactly what I had been wondering too. "I dunno about at this moment, but do you wanna be my boyfriend?" I asked in a simple manner, as the blueberry turned into a strawberry. "Only if you be mine," he said as he leaned back towards me. "Shigaraki Spav. We didn't do it." He stopped me before we could go any further. When I touched his right arm covered in bandages, he winced and pushed me away, but I didn't get it. His left arm was covered in scars and he didn't mind when I touched that arm, so what's up with his right? I sat there staring at the TV screen looking like a possessed corpse until he walked into the room and sat between my legs and smiled up at me. "Morning sleepyhead, did you get enough sleep, damn you Izu?" "Izu, I don't get it, why are so many people trying to kill that character, what did he do?" I said, trying to change the topic in my head, though I was also actually interested in the anime. "Because he has found a way to disrupt the natural order of the world and hence he should be killed." That felt like a stab wound to the throat. "Is that what you believe?" I asked, hoping he'd say no. "I do believe that people would naturally want to kill the person who can break the natural order of the world, but that's because humans fear change since it brings something new into the equation. I however would rather befriend such a person since they'd cause such sweet chaos for this shitty world, and they'd be able to end my existence, surely." That's deep. I wasn't expecting such a deep and mature answer, that it fried my brain. "So, is there something wrong with your arm?" I asked with minimal brain cells left. He looked at his arm, covered it with his left hand, then looked back up at me. "It's fine, it doesn't really matter, don't fret about it." He's lying through his teeth again. "Okay, as long as you good Izu." We then spent the rest of our day sat like that watching anime, until he fell asleep in my lap. It seemed as though he didn't get much sleep last night, probably paranoid about his arm or something. He was lying on me like a lap pillow, but I let him get away with it since he was so cute. After around 3 hours into his sleep, I checked if he was still asleep, then directed my attention towards his arm. I wanted to check, not because I was curious but that I was worried about him as his boyfriend. I began unwinding the bandages and averted my eyes until they were fully off. What I saw after that shocked me to my core. "No," I gasped as I stared directly at his arm covered in cracks and slowly crumbling. I had used my quirk and witnessed me using my quirk enough times that I knew that it was undoubtedly caused by me. This is my fault. I. At this point tears were forcing themselves out of my eyes and I wept, letting out a violent scream of curses that shocked Izu awake. He raised his right arm to rub his eyes as he asked Tomu, "Are you okay?" He then saw the bandages unraveled from his arm and his face filled with shock. He looked up at my watery eyes and began to cry too. He wasn't angry that I saw his arm. I knew that the only reason he hid it from me is because I'd blame myself, and he was correct. "Don't worry about it, it's not your fault," Izu sobbed as he gave me a miserable smile and sat up so that he could reach my face. He swung his arms around my neck and I just sat there like a puppet, cut from its strings. "It's fine, Tomu. After all, I'll come back anyway. Don't forget that my quirk is immortality." I gave him a fake and forced smile as I hugged him back. How does he know that? He can't guarantee it. My thoughts clouded my head and I squeezed him tighter. It's fine, I won't leave you. He started rubbing my back to help me cool down. We stayed like that for a while, both crying our eyes out until we heard noises from out at the hallway. Hey, it's clearly been blocked off, maybe we shouldn't be here. An annoyingly high-pitched feminine voice squeaked. I know it's rude, but I heard screaming and I refuse to not help a bro when they're in trouble. I fell into a quiet rage as I heard them try to tear down the barcade. We just had an emotional moment, but now they're gonna ruin it. I let go of Izu and stormed off towards the door, but then Izu wrapped his arms around my waist from behind once more. He slipped my phone out of my pocket and then the next thing I knew, one of Kurogiri's portals appeared behind us. I'll deal with this, I don't want to trouble you. He gave me a desperately sad smile as he grabbed my hand and guided me to the portal. I smiled back at him and patted him on the head. I'm just worried, Izu. What if when I come back you're gone? He tried his best to give me a reassuring smile but failed. Don't worry, Tomu, just remember to keep using your chapstick and moisturizer, and see me later, okay? I gave him a small nod then made my way through the portal, releasing his hand. Please live, Izuku, if you die I'll be shattered. Izuku's pav. I suddenly opened my door in a fit of rage, and the moment I saw the redhead I kicked he directly in the gut and he toppled backwards. Before they had a moment to react I started yelling at them, can't you people just fuck off? Why? Why do you nosy cunts find so much satisfaction from barging into my fucking life? Out of extreme frustration I ran up to Kaminari and drop-kicked him. I then made my way to Todoroki, who gave me an empathetic look. From the way he looked at me, the flame in my heart burnt out, leaving only the dried-up ashes. All I had the effort to do was bang my fists against his chest, causing no damage whatsoever. I dropped to the floor in a crying pit of despair until an idea came into my head. Pain. Pain can distract me from my emotional suffering. I wobbled up and used the wall to help me get to my room, the others following behind me. Piss off. I screamed at them as I slammed my door. I started cutting and cutting and cutting, and it hurt and kept hurting, but it was better than anything else. Stop ignoring reality. We hurt Tomu and you know it. Tomura needs us, we need him. We have to be with him before it's too late. I put my music on full blast to drown out the voice. Clearly one of the students were worried because soon a herd of teachers came in, busting down my door and saw me slitting my wrists while my eyes were puffy and red. Fug, I said when they came in. Izuku's pav. They just kept asking me and demanding that I answer why I was so miserable to the point of cutting myself, but I refused to answer. They then insisted that I have a full body check and they found the cracks on my arm. I was slowly crumbling and turning to dust. I kept wondering if I could even revive from that state. I did revive from decapitation, but it took so long to regrow my body. They tried to figure out what was wrong with me and were unsure until Sleepy Sensei mentioned the quirk of the leader of the Love, Tomu, and they thought that it had happened during the time I was kidnapped or something. They also looked at how my wounds took so long to heal and I became a temporary lab rat as they watched my arm like hawks watching their prey for 3 days straight. When my cuts had all scarred up I was given some freedom, but they searched my entire room and stole everything dangerous and set up an excessive amount of security, clearly an invasion of privacy. After 2 months of this and more fucking therapy I was given permission to join a hero agency. I really didn't want to and just wanted to wallow in pity, but I didn't have a choice and they signed me up to the Night Eye agency and was paired up with some guy who only had pupils and no white in his eyes. One day when we were on patrol we approached a bird-masked man and a young girl who looked absolutely miserable, so I punched him round the face and ran off with the child. Take that, you abusive motherfucker, I yelled violently, leaving Pupil Face to deal with him. We then had an operation to invade the Yakuza and deal with the Birdman and his goons, which we did a rather smooth job of, and the kids stayed locked in a safe house the whole time. After the operation we suffered from a few injuries on our side and a lot of injuries for them. Also pupil face lost his quirk to some bullet. I wonder if something like that would have worked on me. Oh, I nearly forgot, but night I died. I later heard a report that my sweet Tomu had disintegrated the Birdman's arms so he couldn't use his quirk. He's such a great boyfriend. We've still been messaging each other but we haven't been able to see each other since I was being watched so intensely, and he's still so worried about me and what was happening to my arm, and I told him that it hadn't grown at all. That was a lie. Now the cracks have spread all the way up to my arm, over to my shoulder and down my chest, reaching my belly button. At the moment they were only light cracks but only time could tell if they would get any worse. It was now the cultural festival. My class were preparing to do some sort of concert while I was just sat in the corner with a blank face and steady appearance. The only time my unstable self was asked to do something was when they needed rope from a shop, so I had to go with an army of ectoplasms and we encountered a small-time online villian, who was quickly captured. We then spent our time enjoying the cultural festival. Well, not me of course, I was kept in the staff room like a pet dog for being too unstable. I'm sure all my classmates had a blast and loved their time there as they participated in the other activities. Then there was me sat on a chair, drinking tea, with the principal opposite me giving me lectures. Pupil face also went around with the child we saved and I'm certain that they both loved it, while there's me, falling asleep on the chair out of extreme boredom. When the day ended I was guided back to my room and sat there texting Tomu. The next thing I knew I drifted off to sleep in the middle of a call with him. The next few days were just the same usual boring lessons, with the same usual boring routine until we had our winter break and got to either go home or stay at the dorms. During that break almost everybody except me went home and I could actually walk around freely and do as I so pleased, which was pretty cool, but I still couldn't see Tomu again. When I messaged him I informed him of the events at UA, not even thinking about any consequences, and we basically planned his next appearance together. It would be during a training session and on the day of that session I'll tell him about it and shut down security as best I could. At some point all the Class 1A students returned to the dorms and had a party. I just stayed in my room and listened to Wish You Were Gay on loop. I noticed that, at some point, someone was in front of my door and went to check and saw a plate of food at my door with a note on it, "Merry Christmas." It read. I raised my eyebrow, threw the note away and enjoyed the food. What's Christmas? I questioned myself. When we started back at school on the new year it was a cold, frosty day and we had to get into our hero costumes. Those who had reasonably exposed costumes had to update them so that they were non-frostbite friendly, while others were fine as is. It was announced that we were going to be having battles, 1A versus 1B, and the purple insomniac was also a part of it. I recorded what we were about to do, and all the instructions the teacher gave and sent it to Tomu, along with the coordinates. At that point, the cracks had reached down to my legs and other arm, and the fingers on my right hand started crumbling. They weren't growing back. Izuku's POV. The first match was between teams A2 and B3, the Insomnia joined the 1A team this time. The group narrowly won thanks to the efforts of the Insomniac, and without him would have surely lost. Next up was Group A1 versus Group B2. From Class B's group I distinctly remembered there being Mushroom and Onomatopoeia. They were weird. After that match our class lost. Next was the group Todoroki was in versus Group B4, they managed to get a draw. Then it was Kachan's turn and they won. Finally, I had to take part in a match, and before I did I received a message from Tomu and it said, "Be prepared, we're coming in 5 and when we do I'm taking you back with me." His declaration made my face blush a gentle pink and heart flutter, but I quickly covered it up so that no one would notice. But I think Sleepy Sensei did because he gave me a suspicious look then turned away. When I walked over to our starting position I checked the time on my phone and saw that there were only 2 minutes left. In my team I had Pinky, Balls, and Lil Kirby, though it didn't matter since the match would never take place. As the alarm rang out, there was a sudden explosion in the vicinity of where the other students were. I climbed up the poles and pipes, as did the people on my team, and we saw Tomu stood at the top of a tower. A sweetly chaotic smile appeared on my face and I started jumping pole to pole, trying to reach him. Clearly the others in my team assumed I either wanted to kill him or I was traumatized because they tried to stop me. I just yelled "fuck off already." And when given the chance I broke away from them and kept going to Tomu. We then stared at each other. I was only 1 meter away from him on a separate pipe. He stretched out his hand offering to help me up to him and I reached out mine in order to take it. Before I had the chance, Sleepy Sensei jumped up to Tomu and tried to use his capture scarf. Tomu smoothly dodged it and I heard him say, "So annoying," in an agitated voice. Tomu and Sleepy Sensei moved out of view as they jumped down and had a sort of showdown. I tried to climb down and find them, but instead I fell on the floor, hit my head and passed out. While I was unconscious I heard yelling, screaming and crying. It was perfect and utter chaos. At that point our past conversation came into my head. "Izu, I don't get it, why are so many people trying to kill that character, what did he do?" I remembered Tomu asking me that when he came to my room. Because he has found a way to disrupt the natural order of the world and hence he should be killed. Yeah, that was what I said, wasn't it? Is that what you believe? I could tell that Tomu was thinking of what I believed about him when he asked that. I do believe that people would naturally want to kill the person who can break the natural order of the world, but that's because humans fear change since it brings something new into the equation. I however would rather befriend such a person since they'd cause such sweet chaos for this shitty world, and they'd be able to end my existence, surely. Ha! Look at that, it seems like what I said actually happened, though with a few extra steps. I was dating Tomu, he created a collage of chaos, and he was the one who was going to end me. Ha! Isn't that ironic? I told myself when I woke up and covered my face with my arms. I broke out in hysterical laughter, until I finally stopped and sat up. I tried to stand, but when I did I fell back down and looked at my legs. My left leg was gone. All that remained was a pile of black ash. Ash, huh? What an anticlimactic ending. My mouth formed a small quivering smile as I lay back down on the ground. "Goodbye, cruel world," I said as I closed my eyes. "Do you know why I exist? Izuku's Pav. Why you exist?" I asked the voice. "You exist because I'm fucked up in the head and I'm mentally unstable. I mean, it is true. I was created due to those reasons but exist for another. This was fucking insane. Why was my subconscious talking about why it existed? I mean, I do question why I exist, but I already know the answer. My parents just had unprotected sex is all and created a miserable mistake. I exist to help you die. You subconsciously chose it and unconsciously made me, and I found you a solution." It was true that the voice was what guided me, but that was all. It still was limited to me own knowledge and intelligence, right? "You are going to die. What will you do now?" I let out a diabolical laugh and tainted smile as I yelled out, "Ha! So I'm really gonna die?" I kept laughing until I calmed myself and broke down into a desperate cry. Why? Why am I sad? I questioned myself as I tried to wipe the tears from my eyes, though it was futile since more just poured out. "Will you just stay there? I want to die, but I want to be with Tomu." I made my final decision and flipped onto my stomach so that I could push myself with my remaining leg and used my arms to assist it, as I dragged myself forward. "Tamura!" I screamed out as I searched for him, however my vision was polluted by the tears that wouldn't stop flowing. Tamura violently coughed due to my lack of water and extreme thirst, spitting up blood in the process. I couldn't yell as much, but I kept screaming his name, until I saw a figure jump out from behind a large silver barrel. It was Tomu. When he saw me he stared for a moment and became ghost pale, as the color flushed out of hid. Water started streaming out of his eyes. He ran up to me and collapsed at my side, clutching onto my hand. "Tomu," I said in a dried and thirsty voice. No. Izuku. No. He said in his raspy voice, excessively croaky from the despair that filled his mind. Please. Tomu, please just hold me, let me be with you. He scooped me up and sat there with me slightly on his lap as he squeezed me tightly. No, please Izu? I need you, I can't live without you, I can't do that. His words were full of desperation and suffering, but there was nothing I could do about it. Look at me, I said, and he moved his head up to see my smiling face. For once it was a genuinely happy smile, and he knew that. He tried to smile back at me but failed miserably and gave me an even more desperate look of despair. At that point, in the corner of my eye I saw Sleepy Sensei running up to Tomu but stopped when he saw him crying as he held me in his arms. He looked possessed by shock, then ran off, probably to get other teachers. I love you, I said through my tears. I love you. I placed my forehead on his and felt my other leg crumble away. I raised my hand and placed it gently on his cheek. I love you. My hands started disintegrating. Tenko. 1 second I was there and the next all I could see was darkness. Shigaraki's paw, final paw. As I held him in my arms I saw a trail of dark color falling off of him and squeezed him more tightly. I could hardly stand it, but throughout it all I looked him in the eyes to be there with him and support him. He looked truly happy. Well, he did get his wish at least, and from the very start he was right. I really was the one who was supposed to end him. One moment he was there telling me he loves me, and then I heard my name, Tenko. How did he? The next thing I knew he was gone and my arms felt empty as they just hovered there. I dropped fully to the floor and banged my fist against the ground aggressively to the point where my hand started bleeding. The tears wouldn't stop and my screams couldn't be hushed. A world without him shouldn't exist. I can't live without him. Me and this world, we should all just decay. Well, there we go, the bittersweet tragedy. I'd like to hear people's opinions of the ending, though I have one comment. I will not change it. I love tragic endings like this, so it's good as is, smiley face. That will be the end of the video. See you never, haha.